Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 37th episode of Dragon Quest Slime Time Sidequest. This is your host, Platium3. Genghis? Genghis? Are you there?
We're sorry, but the party you have reached, Genghis the Legendary Bandit, is not available at the moment to talk. Please leave a message at the beep and try again later.
Did you really expect him to sit through another Star Trek episode?
Yeah, that's you make a good point there. I thought he'd be here joking about Star Wars or something, but... Oh, well, there goes my entire 4-page long Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Child, Starman, Starship Troopers, The Fault in Our Stars comedic script.
Thank the stars.
Oh, but you still did your line. Nice. Thank you for that. So if you haven't been able to tell by the title of this episode as you downloaded it and by our blessedly short intro, we're here tonight to chat Star Trek again. But instead of covering, 1,000+ episodes and movies, we're going to just focus on 10 episodes today.
That's right. The first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds wrapped up a couple weeks ago, and we've been posting about the episodes on Discord weekly. So it's about time we actually talked about it while our memories are fresh, because my memories don't stay fresh.
Mine neither. I've already had to rewatch the entire season for this podcast. So helping my memories stay fresh, and us too, we've got Bururian here tonight.
Hey, what's going on?
And we've also got a new guest to welcome to Slime Time. You may know him as Star Rekt on Twitter and YouTube, but long before he kissed a Borg and he liked it, we knew him as Hawkeye 7704 on the Dragon's Den. Welcome to Slime Time, Ian.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. So now usually when we have someone on Slime Time, we ask them about their history with Dragon Quest. And you know what? You mentioned a good point, so I do want to ask that too. But definitely want to ask you about your Star Trek fandom too. So take a few minutes. Tell us what got you into Star Trek, what got you into Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, and what have you done? What have you created with both your series? Because just last night talking to Woodus, I got a reminder about something you did Dragon Quest-wise.
Yeah, sure thing. Happy to talk about literally two of my favorite things in this entire world. So forgive me if I ramble. I'll try to be as short as possible. I'll start with Dragon Quest, being that this is technically a Dragon Quest podcast. I've been a Dragon Quest fan since I was 4 years old. And to put that in perspective, the original Dragon Quest game is 1 year older than me. So you do the math. But yeah, I fell in love with it pretty much instantly between renting. We had the original Dragon Warrior on NES, and then renting Dragon Warrior 3 from time to time. I just absolutely fell head over heels. And then it just continued into through childhood, into adulthood, because the games kept on coming. We kept on being lucky as hell to keep on getting games in the United States, and it's. To quote Star Trek, it has been and always will be my first love.
Nice.
My favorite franchise of all time. Like, that has not wavered at all. So, and I've been familiar with the Den since pretty much it started in '97. That's when I started to look up, be cheap and look up the cheats and walkthroughs. And yeah, I've been not so active on the Den in recent years, but in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I tried to be fairly active as possible. So people there, as mentioned, you might know me as Hawkeye 7704. And I am the creator of two fan games called Dragon Warrior Classic 1 and 2. And yeah.
What got you to do those? What did you make them in?
I made them in RPG Maker VX, which I think anyone familiar with that series is like, ew, that one? Because apparently it's not the most popular one. But I started it because, I've always wanted to make any sort of Dragon Quest fan game for a long time. I even tried to dabble in coding because I wanted to do it. But once I learned about RPG Maker and learned that, this could be a fairly easy way to do it, but also make it customizable to give that original Dragon Warrior aesthetic. That added fuel to the fire, but also the fact that I had just moved to California from New York, and at first didn't have a job, knew nobody, so I wasn't going out hanging out with friends or anything. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and that is the perfect time to start diving into a little fan game. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, both games, even though frustrating at times. But writing the music is my favorite part of it, because as we'll talk about later. I definitely have a musical bone. Creating new monsters is also very exciting, especially when you come across designs that you really enjoy. It's also very collaborative with people on RPG forums, but also people from the den helping me create monsters and or write some scripts for me for the code in the game. Like Jamiris, gotta give a shout out to him. He was a savior when it came to a lot of the aesthetic additions to both games. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And then to Star Trek, basically, as far as I'm concerned, I came into this world loving Star Trek because my dad would have me on his lap as a baby and then a toddler while he would watch the original TOS cast movies on VHS, 1 through 4 at the time. And when I got old enough to just learn how to plop a VHS tape into the VCR and watch them myself, I swear to God, even by the time I could start to remember and have memories, I could already quote Wrath of Khan 100%. Wow. So I have no memory of watching the first 5 movies for the first time. It wasn't until Star Trek 6, which was my first movie in theaters, that I remember watching something for the first time in regards to the movies. But yeah, so the movies were the beginning of my fandom and have been my favorite part. But as I got older, and then obviously when streaming became more front and center, definitely got into all the various series, finally started watching them from beginning to end. And so now I'm like far more familiar with ones like the original series or Deep Space Nine or Enterprise that I either watched casually back then. But I was mainly a TNG Voyager guy. Because I convinced my dad to give me a subscription to the service called ReTV, which actually you sign up and they sent me a VHS tape containing 2 Voyager episodes every month. So before series came out on DVDs for people to binge, I was already binging episodes of Voyager on VHS through this little subscription service. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I used to get some tapes like that too. Voyager.
Were they in like LCARS looking cases?
You know, I can't remember for the Voyager ones.
Yeah, because we might have had the same thing. Yeah, it was a good service, but it probably got knocked out of business as soon as DVDs started coming out.
Yeah, because we did this like right before. I mean, DVDs were right around the corner, so and we didn't get many of them. I don't think because it was sort of expensive.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? And then of course the joy of like taking blank VHS tapes and recording either new episodes of Voyager, or I also recorded a whole bunch of late night repeats of TNG, which is how I got familiar with that show initially, and just watching those over and over and over again.
Yeah, me too. They started showing it on TNT, I think. And that's when I really got to see a lot of them.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, for TNG. And I will fully admit that I am definitely a late bloomer when it comes to DS9, because me, like a whole lot of other people, when DS9 was first airing, I'm like, they're just on a space station. They're not going anywhere. This is boring. And I hate Ferengi, which actually hasn't changed. But with Netflix and going through DS9 and seeing it from beginning to end just completely changes your perspective, because damn, that show did a whole lot more than any other Star Trek show to that point had done. Had the best side characters, the best character arcs, the best ideas. Yeah, it's an amazing show.
Yeah, that one I watched as it aired.
I'm kind of very jealous about the people who noticed these things and latched onto it early, because I would have loved to elongated that experiment of WoW to what that show presented.
Yeah, see, I totally missed Voyager or most of Voyager and Deep Space Nine. It was like the 5 years that they were on. I think they're on like 4 years together or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think those were like the exact 4 years I was in college and we didn't have cable, and I was working a job, doing a double major, dating. Like there was like no time for TV anyway. So you weren't a big enough nerd, is what you're saying. Correct.
Well, he said he was dating, so yeah.
I didn't even play video games. I brought my Super Nintendo to college with like one cartridge, and everybody's got their PS1, and I'm like, yeah, I got too much. I did get into like real-time or what is it, turn-based strategies back then, like a lot of city builders and everything. But no, like it was finally like I graduated, I started teaching, and my girlfriend at the time like had classes to almost 7 o'clock every night in grad school, or was out studying a lot, and that's when like, hey, this channel shows repeats every night at 6 or 7 or something, and I could finally like catch up. And Deep Space Nine was even longer. I think I finally, when I got my first DVR in like 2006 or 7, like that was the first thing I searched at, was like, is somebody showing Deep Space Nine? Because I need DVR this shit. I've totally missed it for the past 10 years.
Yeah, after the run, DS9 was hardly replayed if you didn't have the VHS up until DVDs and streaming. Good luck finding it. Yeah, UPN
I think a lot
gave
of people,
up on it too.
I think a lot of people missed it because if you missed an episode, you were sort of lost. Things changed so quickly. It's like they were friendly with the Klingons in one episode, and then like 10 episodes later they were at war. It's like if you missed a few weeks, you were in the dark about what was going on.
Yep, exactly. But hey, it was ahead of its time. Absolutely ahead of its time.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have these worries.
I didn't get to it until like 2014, I think, but I loved it when I did.
Yeah, it was roughly about the same time as me. Yeah, when I like truly committed to it, watching beginning to end. Yeah, same time.
Last year, I bought all the seasons on DVD just to watch it again.
It's so
worth
good
it
when you binge it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely worth it.
I finally, after I think a couple seasons of Discovery off and on, whatever, like using free trials and whatnot, finally I've gone whole hog with Paramount Plus. They got my full year ad free, and I'm like, okay, you've done enough with Star Trek that I should probably financially back you.
Yeah, in a way where like I only buy formally. I would only used to buy game consoles that I knew had Dragon Quest games coming out on it. Like, of course, I'm going to do the service that I know will have all of Star Trek, even though sometimes it doesn't, which makes no sense, but that's beside the point.
That's another
They do now, don't they? Are they good? I think they're caught up now. I think so. Even in the springtime, it was a little iffy, but...
Still not sure about the JJ movies, though, because those have been hit or miss on Paramount, which, again... makes no sense.
I think only the first one is on Paramount, actually.
That's so bonkers. But hey, I do. So I work in digital distribution in entertainment. So I definitely am aware of how absolutely goofy distribution rights can be. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I hear tell.
They signed those deals ages ago.
Exactly. Yep.
So. All right, so we've talked about all the other Star Treks. Now, for the series we're here for, and I'm actually going to skip way ahead, way down to the bottom of our plan, to actually the very last question. I think, Bururian, you put this in there. What were your general thoughts about the show preseason? So before we actually go through and talk episode by episode here, I think everything else is more episode roundup, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But let's take this question. And Bururian, since you put it, I'll ask you first. What were your general thoughts before this show aired?
I had been watching. I had been kind of out of kilter with Star Trek for a little while at this point because I didn't watch Discovery when it initially aired. Not because I knew I was going to hate it or anything like that, just because I just was busy with other stuff. But I started watching season 1 of Discovery, I think right before they announced Strange New World. And I don't know if I've talked to you too much about it, Platty, but I've talked with Aust extensively about it, and I am really not into that first season of Discovery. And I was like, oh no, is it going to be just more of this? So I was like on the fence of, I don't know. But then I saw, it had Anson Mount and Ethan Peck, and it, the stills that they showed looked really good. And I'm like, boy, I hope it is more classic Trek with an ensemble cast of them working with each other to solve problems that are presented to them instead of it being the main character does everything that Discovery did in season 1, and then all of the characters only exist to further what the main character is doing. So I wasn't cautiously optimistic. I was just cautious.
So, Aust, were you a little bit more cautiously optimistic?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Uh, so I have this recurring problem with all these Star Trek shows where it's like I want to trust going into it, and really I should learn my lesson because they like with Discovery when that was announced, like I was super excited seeing all the promotional material and stuff and just hearing about it. And then I sort of had the same reaction as Bururian did about season 1. And you and I have talked about season 3 and 4 and how much I love season 4 now, and
Yeah.
I think it's I think Discovery's a show I'd recommend to anyone. But we went through that, and then there was Picard, and
I'm finally on your side with that one after this last season.
Elongated sigh.
that was a TV show, and that happened, and I watched it, and even after Lower Decks, which I really loved and enjoyed, like I was still gun shy from. I mean, Picard just really did a number on me, but everything about Strange New Worlds looked really good. The way they were talking about it looked really good. I like Bururian. I like Anson Mount. I liked all of the casting. I wasn't really on board with the actor for Spock at first. I don't know why. He didn't gel with me when I watched him in season 2 of Discovery. But I think for the most part he's grown on me, and I think he's a pretty good Spock. All the rest of the casting has been really great too, and there was nothing really that stood out to me when it was being talked about, when it was being promoted, that stood out as a red flag or anything. Of course, that I guess I was excited about the Discovery promotional material too, so that doesn't necessarily. That's where the caution came in, because
Mhm.
you think after season 1 of Picard, like they'll do something better than that. That's just seems to be that would be a natural progression. And then I felt like they didn't. So, I was very, like I said, I was very cautious, but thankfully I was not let down and really enjoyed it.
All right, Ian, what was your thoughts before it aired?
A lot of very similar thoughts to what you both have mentioned so far. My biggest thing when Strange New Worlds was announced is it was sorry, excuse me, because there was such a fan outcry for a Pike Spock #1 Enterprise show because of how great Anson Mount was in Discovery season 2.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they actually gave exactly what the fans wanted was incredible. And I thought that, okay, if they're listening to making the show because of the outcry, are they also listening to the fans' desires for more traditional standalone episodes that we're also crying out for? And so the more news that came out for Strange New Worlds, they kept on saying, yes, standalone episodes, yes, TOS with a big budget. And I just got more and more excited. And the only difference is I was not cautiously optimistic. I was just wearing my optimism front and center, which was very risky considering the age of radically different differences in quality as far as the Star Trek that's being produced nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it. They succeeded. They gave us exactly what we wanted. So my excitement just turned to pure joy.
Yep. And you know what? I was the same way. I was very excited for this. Pike, out of the first 4 seasons, was my favorite Discovery captain yet, like by far. Sorry, Saru. But I was raised on TOS and TNG, and like I was just saying earlier, I went like TNG to Voyager, kind of missed most of the DS9 until afterwards. So like standalone stories were pretty much what I knew. Maybe you get the 2-parter, you get the season finale. Like I love that standalone stuff. And yes, I love DS9 because holy cow, that cast is amazing and the writing's amazing. When I finally got to see that all. But, at heart, what did I grow up with? I grew up with all those individual stories and just great characters, and they were all, doing stuff together, not the Michael Burnham show. So, I was very excited, and this has lived up to everything. We're probably going to talk, just by the nature of the way we put it in here, our little Star Trek nitpicky stuff a lot, but I think it can't be understated that, yeah, all of us are very excited about this. And, for the most part, every episode we've got a lot of positives, and probably every positive outweighs every little nitpick that we're going to kind of bring up. But yeah, they nailed it. You're exactly right, Ian. They gave the fans what they wanted, and look what happened. It actually worked. Not to say that in every franchise that would, but for once, that was the right way to go.
I agree. They had all the pieces in place to be crowned instantly the best current Star Trek show, and they stuck the landing. They really did. Yeah, there are nitpicks here or there, but it's like turning in a masterpiece of an essay to a high school teacher, and just they were obligated to put some red on the paper.
Yep. They got 97 on everything. Very few 100s, but you're still riding that A+ line all the time. So, all right, let's get going. We'll start right with the first episode. Which was called Strange New Worlds, and it got us introduced to the half of the cast that we didn't get to see on Discovery, or at least most of them, because not everybody was on the first episode. Aust, what was your favorite parts about the first episode?
My favorite part, well, the plot, I mean, in general, really. Like just getting to have an episode that is really like at the heart of what Star Trek is about to begin with was very refreshing. Just after even season 4 of Discovery, which, like I said, I thought was very good, but I also felt had the constant problem of being too high stakes. Or being so high stakes and not giving enough time for smaller stories. That's what was so refreshing to me about it. The visual aesthetic was much closer to the original series than what you saw in Discovery, which isn't the most important thing, but for those of us who are fans of that aesthetic, it's definitely a positive. And it feels more consistent to the time frame that this show is set in. I really enjoyed the speech at the end that Pike gave to the alien government, and I can't remember if their name is actually Kylian. I know the planet was called was it Kylie? Is it Planet Kylie?
I want to say it was Kylian, but I could be absolutely wrong.
That might be right. I don't remember. It wasn't an important point, so I didn't really commit that part to memory. But the speech at the end it felt very Star Trek. It felt it harkened back to the dialogue that we used to have in Star Trek. And, not to say that we haven't had that in other Star Treks. It's even shown up in Picard, I feel, in season 2. But it was just a powerful way to launch this series.
Yeah. You like the speech at the end. I love the way they opened it with Una's opening, with her doing her log and saying, first contact is just a dream until one day it isn't. And just that little part of the beginning kind of gave me chills. I was like, ooh. And then you got to see a first contact right away. That was it was nice to have it wasn't a captain's log, but it was still nice to have an opening narration for the pilot episode. Felt very classic. And by the way, speaking about the opening, it's nice to have a captain who actually likes science fiction, in modern Trek. Just gonna say that.
Didn't Picard say, "Oh, I'm not much into sci-fi"? Didn't he say that at one point? Twice.
Well, he said it explicitly in season 1, and then in season 2, there's a scene where he and Guinan are talking, and then somebody comes in and says something about I always like sci-fi, or you want to talk about sci-fi, and they both say no. It's just it's like Patrick Stewart's choosing every opportunity he can to say he doesn't like science fiction, which is fine for Patrick Stewart.
That's as meta as that show gets, anyways.
Yeah.
What do you guys like, Bururian and Ian?
I really liked the lead out with the atmosphere and characterization of everything. immediately, to me, it felt like Trek. Comparatively to go back a month before where I had watched most of season 1 of Discovery at that point, and I was like, this feels like too much like an action movie all of the time. And then we get Strange New World, and I'm like, okay, we've got a captain who actually cares about his crew. We've got everybody working together to solve a problem. I really loved Una's intro speech and Pike's outro speech for the episode. One of the small things I liked was when they were down on the planet and Spock's serum kept starting to wear off, and Nurse Chapel just beams the serum directly into him. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Wasn't that Chief Kyle who did it?
Was it Chief? That's right. Yeah, she told him to do it. She came up with the serum. He beamed it in. Yeah.
There's my little nitpicky. It was like, well, it can't be done. Well, figure out a way to do it, and they done like right away.
Figure it out.
There's your science fiction.
I liked the very beginning when we get to see bearded Captain Pike, who wants nothing to do with Starfleet because of his deep, dark secret. So he tries to, get away. But he can't run away from his future. So I know you weren't that much of a fan of the beard there, Platty.
I was not a fan of the beard. That's under my thumbs down. But hey, it went away
what is it
quickly,
with you
so
and
whatever.
hair? What is it with you and hair, man?
I've got like my nice buzz cut. My kids have buzz cuts. Like, get it all off. Get it all off. Stupid Dragon Quest 11 hero mop head.
I liked it because I thought the episode was great because it just felt good to me. The episode felt great. It was one of those things of when I'm watching a TV show, if I'm not enjoying it, sometimes I'll look at my watch to see what time it is or something. I didn't before I knew it, I was like, oh, the episode is over. Gotta wait for next week now, and that's a great feeling to have.
That is,
yeah.
Ian, what about you?
This was one of the few episodes that I actually was able to squeeze in a rewatch of, so I actually do have notes here. But a lot of it is just talking about even though it's tacky, I love the new Star Trek Universe intro. Love the correlation, the callback to the cage / the menagerie of like Pike's home, like in the Midwest, and riding horses. He mentioned that in the cage.
Oh, that's right, he did.
The intro is incredibly damn sexy.
Oh, dude, that intro is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I never skip it. I cannot skip it.
Yep, I can't either.
So nice to get to see so much of the ship.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I guess I'll jump ahead to a meh or a nitpick.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
And this is something that's kind of been a thing of all current Star Trek from Discovery on, but just because it's the Enterprise and we all have such vivid recollection of how bright and vivid the ship actually is, especially from like the motion picture, I really do not like how dark it is. I want that baby lit up. I want to see the silver sheen everywhere. It's just so gray most of the time, and it really kind of bums me out because it really is a good design. It's a great marriage between the TOS, so it's a great reimagining of TOS, but also includes elements of the motion picture Enterprise, which is my favorite. So yeah, I just want to see it.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm. I can get behind that as well.
But back to the good things. Honestly, practically everything. Like I agree with a lot of what you guys have said about it. Really brings back a classical feel. It's very much falls in place and in line with the optimism of the future that, of course, everyone is like, that's Gene Roddenberry's vision. We need to be optimistic, and everyone works together. So it does go back to that, absolutely. And yeah, it was a very strong pilot. It really was a very strong pilot.
I've seen lots of people that say like that may be one of the best pilots in all of Star Trek, and that I don't disagree. Like they nailed it right out of the gate.
Yeah, they just flat out said this is what this show is. Not only just this is what Star Trek is in general, but this is specifically what this show is going to be about. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, I do like the fact that it did connect some story beats with Discovery Season 2. I like the fact that, of course, it mentions Pike having a little bit of trauma from knowing his future. Spock and Pike mention Spock's sister in the turbolift passively. So there is a connection. So not only for people who have already been invested as a continuation of the story, but it also for people who are coming in fresh just for this show, it intrigues them. They might go into Discovery now to see what the heck they're talking about and maybe discover that show.
Yeah, True.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
But bum.
I always intend my puns.
All right. So, any other little nitpicky stuff before we move on to from anybody, or Austin, you got some things that you wanted to say too before we move on to episode 2?
Yeah. I mean, looking at my meh column, I feel like most of the stuff is really nitpicks when you look at the broad ultimate picture. I guess my biggest problem that when going into this, and the one that is still hanging around really, is the fact that there are so many TOS characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Spock has to be there, obviously, because that's where he's at this time. Now that I've seen the actor they've got for Uhura and just the story they've written for her, I don't mind it as much. I think I like where they're going with that. But the idea of having so many TOS characters in general, I just feel like they should do more originals, some of their own, original content, their own characters. Give us something new, because first of all, we need the novelty of that is better in my opinion. But also, like, if you're looking at this like it's a large, consistent universe, one timeline, which I know with Star Trek, anything, bringing in the word consistency is,
We'll circle back around to that soon.
Tenuous at best, we'll say.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But, that doesn't mean just because past series have made mistakes that doesn't mean that new series should get a free pass, I believe, anyway. I don't think any of them should get a free pass. I don't think you should criticize them all fairly on their own merits. But it'll make things a little bit jarring, I feel, going from Strange New Worlds to the original series, especially with Nurse Chapel. Her characterization is just so completely different between the two series. And part of that's just because she didn't have much of a character at all in the original series. Mm-hmm. And they're actually, on the one hand, they're actually writing a good character. They're making an interesting character here, and not just making a boring, flat character, which, maybe I shouldn't criticize them for that. Maybe I should just, let it be. But like I said, it's going to be strange going from Strange New Worlds to TOS because of that.
I absolutely agree, Ost. One of my mess for the whole show in general is, I completely agree. There's too many TOS characters, because what's going to happen unless they pull a timey-wimey. What's going to happen to Pike. What's going to happen to Spock. What's going to happen to the Enterprise. What's going to happen to those 3 at 4. If you count the Enterprise, mainly. You still want to, it kind of takes away from a lot of dramatic moments. Mm-hmm. So like any moment of tension of, oh my God, will they survive, with Pike, Spock, Uhura, sorry, I forgot Uhura, or the ship, is just, or Chapel or M'Benga, is just not there. So that's why I absolutely agree that I wish they would have a few more characters to balance it out that were original, because we don't know what's going to happen to Ortegas. We don't know what's going to happen to La'an. We do know what happened to Hemmer. Hopefully they bring in another original character. I do not want to see Scotty.
Yeah,
they have said that they're not going to yet.
Good.
That was confirmed like right after that week. They were like, "Hey, relax. We'll probably get to him, depending on how many seasons they do or whatever, but that isn't going next. They are making another original engineer next season."
Good. But on the flip side, characters like M'Benga and Chapel being able to be flushed out from just either one appearance or 2 appearances for M'Benga, or being, like you said, so completely flat. That is one of my positives of the show, is the fact that Chapel now has an actual personality. So when it comes to characterization differences, that's one I can absolutely deal with. Going from an absolute flat, like, she could be a drawing on the wall for anyone cared in the original series, but now she is a cool, badass character that I want to see more of.
Yeah, and to go back to the dramatic tension thing, like it's a lot of characters to just know the fate of. Like, you also got to remember there's Pike in there too. We know how he where his story ends up, and he can't die at any point in this show now.
Yeah. And Sam Kirk and James Kirk when he reappears.
Yeah, it does suck a lot of the drama out during those moments.
God, they might be killing a lot of characters. that they can.
Ooh, yeah. All right. Well, that was just episode 1. We'll have to speed up a little bit, getting in all.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. Getting into all 10 episodes we want to talk about. But the second one, second episode called Children of the Comet. And this, Bururian, you and I were talking, this is one of my top 2 of the season.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think right from the very beginning, you could just see the excitement of everybody. Like when Pike's quote on the bridge, like before even the opening credits, he turns to number 1. He's like, "I love this job," and just yeah, I loved how the plot of this one didn't kind of resolve everything, which I think is kind of where Star Trek does the best, when not everything's wrapped up with a neat tiny bow. Heck, the first episode, you didn't even watch what happens to that planet when Pike takes off, Maybe they're going to just blow the hell out of each other at some point, but who knows?
Yeah, but that's the nice thing about it is, we don't know who made the comet or why the comet exists, and we don't need to know. You don't
need to. That's not the point of the
Yeah, that's not the point of it. The point of it was the interaction with the what do they call themselves?
The Guardians.
Pike called them the Guardians. Pike called
Yeah.
them religious zealots, but the interaction between them and getting a better understanding of an alien race and stuff. So
Yeah, Star Trek particularly. No, I'm just going to say Star Trek. Star Trek thrives when things are open-ended. Now, obviously, we as fans always love information. We always love finding out and knowing the reason of things. But honestly, I think a lot of Star Trek's low points come from explaining too much, explaining why Klingons have ridges, explaining this, that, or the other thing, like things that didn't need to be explained and could have just been left alone. But specifically for story and faith-based themes, Star Trek has always left ambiguous. Because that's like the greatest example of something that you just will never know. Science versus faith in a grander scale than just our Earth-based religions.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Although I think I'm the only one who liked the Enterprise Ridge augment virus thing, Klingon virus.
I know that's
I'm the
pretty much
only
a split 50-50, but if there's one thing that absolutely bugs the hell out of me, it is as good as the 4th season of Enterprise was, I absolutely could have done without those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I mean...
But it all goes back to Worf's comment in, what is it, the DS9 Tribbles comment.
Which was brilliant.
Yep.
That's a sort of open vagueness that I just think is perfect, because people can debate it all they want, but it is just a perfect, seemingly throwaway line, but holds so much weight.
Then they didn't throw it away in Enterprise. You're right. I was okay with that being explained a little bit. I think it was almost kind of humorous, but yeah, like no, those throwaway lines, like because Spock back in the 90s when they filmed that episode. They didn't have an answer for that, and that was okay.
Yeah, and then it makes things more confusing with Discovery's Klingons now, because...
Oh, yeah.
I know this is a whole different podcast topic, but I've always been in the camp of this is a 60-year-old franchise. Things are going to change. Styles are going to change. Designs are going to change, because Klingons now changed twice. Uniforms change all the freaking time. The aesthetics of ships and whatnot change all the time. Like, I'm okay with the controllers of the various shows designing and making the show that they want. Like, look at Nicholas. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but this is something I've always wanted to talk about a lot. Look at Nicholas Meyer doing Wrath of Khan. Nicholas Meyer was completely disconnected from Star Trek when he was brought on board for Wrath of Khan. He brought what he knew into it. He knew submarine movies. He knew Horatio Hornblower. He knew like military type stories. So he took this space adventure and put what he knew into it. So here we have a drastically different type of uniform, a drastically different type of demeanor, militaristic demeanor in the characters. And yet, because of writing, because that is all that matters, Wrath of Khan is the greatest Star Trek movie of all time. Despite the changes, and because it's so good, everyone no longer gives a shit about the changes, and they just continue to roll with it because he established a new norm because his writing was so good.
He did get a lot of criticism during his time, though. And I'd say that as someone who loves Wrath of Khan, that's, like you said, that's probably the best of all the films. But even my dad still is indifferent at best about Nick Meyer. He has a much more traditionalist opinion on Star Trek than I do. But I think one famous example from that movie, and we won't talk about this too long because I know it's a different podcast topic, but I think one thing that I remember reading somewhere is that somebody, may not have been Meyer personally, but somebody wanted to put a no smoking sign on the bridge of the Enterprise.
He did.
That was
He did. It's on the it's on the bridge. It's in the transporter room too.
Oh, they did put it on there. Man, how have I not caught that? Yeah, that's so bizarre. Maybe less so if you've seen Picard now and what's his name, Rios?
Yes,
smoking
Rios,
a cigar.
Yeah, and Raffi too.
The best character on Picard, Rios. I actually like Rios.
No, I
fine.
like Rios
He's
too.
cool.
Just thinking about how he ended the second season. But
yeah,
again,
I know they could have spun
Way to
him off
write
with his
him
own
off.
show, but anyway.
elongated side.
But I think we can all agree that Himmer is a fantastic original character.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
they're doing the original characters as well or even better as the classic ones.
They're almost doing them dirty, actually. Okay, here's my controversial statement. I think they're doing them dirty because even though Una is not an original, we don't know anything about her past the cage. So, for all intents and purposes, she's an original. Ortegas, Hemmer, the three characters who have either died or done the least this season. So,
You're right,
second season moving
'cause-
forward, I want to see more from Una. I want to see more from Ortegas.
Yeah.
I want to see more from whoever the new engineer is going to be. I know that Spock and Pike should continue to drive the show because that's the relationship that we're focused on. But yeah, they did them so dirty this season.
Yeah,
You're
I'll
right,
agree. I'll agree with that.
Yep.
And you
So-
know, Una is like being played by such a great actor. I don't want them to waste that. They need to lean, and it looks like they're going to. They need to lean heavily into her in season 2.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
I hope so. And yeah, we've been promised an Ortegas episode. That is another producer thing. We'll get one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cross our fingers. It's got to come. But back to Children of the Comet. Any other good bads?
Yeah, my favorite thing was just real quick. There were so many like cool shots of the ship interacting in space. It was so refreshing. It's
And
so
it was
different
very
from what-
well lit.
Yeah,
It was.
You could see it, so I'm happy.
it's so different from what we've gotten.
There was no light
in
plague where they had to
others.
turn off all the outside lights.
I just
the
like it
people
feels like
inside
in all
couldn't spread
the
it.
other shows, we never get to see the ship. Like in Discovery, I feel like the only time you see it is when it does a spore jump.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Discovery, that's a good looking ship. Like I like the design of that ship. I want to see it more, and they never show it off.
Yeah,
Show me
beauty
them
shots need to
nacelles.
come back. Yeah, those ample nacelles.
Yeah,
Yeah, beauty shots need to come back.
they do. Yes.
Even since the JJ movies, like the first one, 09, had some good beauty shots here and there, but yeah, I just give me some good traditional flybys. Like we talked about Orville before we started recording. That's what Orville does very well. Is
Mhm.
they don't have to be stock footage, but they're great transitional tools. Instead of doing goofy camera zooms down corridors and whatnot, give me some flybys of these sexy looking ships.
Agreed. So, any nitpicks for these this episode?
I think me and Ost basically have the same nitpick
Oh, with Uhura.
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Uhura.
Well, that could be a nitpick for pretty much everybody in Discovery.
Yeah,
That's
the
true.
tragic
Yeah.
backstory.
Yep.
I don't get why they have to do that. It can't be something as simple as she just wanted to join Starfleet or something. It has to be, oh, my parents died, so I joined Starfleet to get away from where I was growing up. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
I loved languages, and where are there a lot of languages? Well, hell, out in space. That's where there's a lot of languages.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me as much as it usually does, because I agree, like constant tragic backstories gets way too old and repetitive. But regards to Uhura, I do have a thing about the Wonderkin hotshot. No matter no matter who the character is, particularly when it's a completely green cadet. Like, yeah, Uhura can absolutely be super talented. and knowledgeable about her languages and her job. But I wanted a little more discomfort around being around the senior officers and being hazed a little bit, and there was a little bit of it, so it's not completely gone, but a little self-doubt about, do I deserve to be here? Am I really the person here to save the day? And it's because that's how you get some character growth. If you have and Tilly's a great example of this, honestly. You have a completely green cadet who has a lot of promise, a lot of talent, but is insecure here or there because she's a cadet. That gives you the ability to then bolster her up throughout the season to the point where at the end of the season, she is completely confident in who she is and putting in her opinion and doing her job and participating. Yeah. So Tilly, I kind of wish she was another Tilly, but with even less.
I mean, she kind of was, because Himmer spent the whole season building her up, because her whole arc this season was, I don't know that I really need to be here, and that's backed up with Spock going out and saying, hey, there are thousands of people who would rather be here than you. I'm not saying you should leave, but if you don't think you should be here, maybe you should step aside and let someone else. And then, we have all of these wonderful interactions between her and Himmer throughout the rest of the season, of him helping her find her way.
Yeah, but that's the showing versus telling thing to me. Like, she's saying that she feels those things, but I never actually got that impression from her in her acting. I think a really great example of how to do this kind of character right is Hoshi from Enterprise. Like, she is a brilliant linguist, like almost like a genetic abnormality in how quickly and how fluently she can learn new languages. But she suffers from claustrophobia, from anxiety. Like, she's not the kind of person who wants to be in space. And they did so many good. She got very little attention in Enterprise just because I feel like they've always had a problem, or Berman era Trek always had a problem writing female characters. But she got so little attention in Enterprise, but yet she was still a much more rounded character, a much more better rounded way of doing this kind of character. I feel like, because you saw her struggles, and she couldn't solve every problem. She was really good within her niche, but that didn't mean she needed to be in space. She wasn't really cut out for that kind of adventure.
Yeah, I agree. Hoshi's a great example.
Definitely.
I feel like there's just general levels. So like you have Hoshi, who's kind of like, Hoshi and Tilly are the ones who, should I really be here? I suck at this, or like I'm just not confident enough. But there's so much middle ground between that and, oh, you're going to try and haze me? Well, I'm going to stand up for myself, and here's your Vulcan language. Here's your Andorian language. Sorry, not Andorian.
Anar.
Thank you. Sorry, roast me. Yeah, I feel like there's some middle ground that she could have been, for lack of a better term, lowered to. Because, I'm just not a fan of the hotshot trope.
No, it didn't. What is it? When she goes into dinner, Pike's even like, "Oh, here's the genius," or whatever. He even calls her out on it, I think.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
It's weird because, like, that's the thing. There was some of it in this episode. There really was, because Uhura even said something along the lines of, like, "Oh, you're asking me to solve this? Okay." But it almost came too easy. I don't know. Like, I would say she was right on the precipice of.
Well, you see, she didn't really figure out the problem for this one. She just Kirk was the catalyst for it.
Kirk or Spock? Yeah, Spock did recognize that. Singing or humming was it? I don't know.
Kirk had a lot to do. He was a catalyst for for like trying to up the stakes, and then it like didn't even like, oh well, he's just gonna lay there for the rest of the episode. And no, I guess we really don't need to rush him back. He's stable. It's fine.
I like the actress.
Oh, geez, that Kirk. Oh my God.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Wow, that Kirk.
Georgie Porgy.
I
do like the actress for Uhura. I do agree with your points, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Oh,
and
yes.
I just want to be really quick. This is just this episode,
right?
But overall, throughout the series, she still does contribute very well. Oftentimes, I just didn't feel like she had that path of growth. Like, she proved herself in this episode, and then that was that. Oh yeah, Uhura knows what she's doing.
Well, you know what the problem is?
Until you put her in a phaser bank.
The problem is we have how many characters are here? Like what, 7, 8, and there are 10 episodes per season. That there's just not going to be enough time to get these characters perfectly well rounded. I don't all of them anyway.
Totally,
Yeah, you're
totally
right, 'cause
agree.
you're gonna have 2 or 3 Pike centric and a couple Spock every season, so you might have 4 or 5 that you can spend on your other 8 or 9 characters.
Yeah,
Totally agree, but the magic is in those BC plots. Like
Oh, yeah.
they can add to characterization as well as any main plot can.
yeah, yep, I agree.
We get that in 2 episodes, definitely the B plot. But all right, let's move on to number 3, the Ghosts of Illyria. Get Pike and Spock stuck on a planet. Well, an very slow-moving ion storm that seems like they could have avoided it completely with very minimal effort. And then you've got
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should just wait a day and not go down there today. Like, we'll go down tomorrow. It's fine. But then you've also got the plot of going on up on the ship with Una and the disease that's ravaging the ship that can only be stopped by turning off the outside lights, apparently. There's my little nitpick.
It was an odd disease.
Yeah.
Didn't have
Yeah.
too much logic surrounding it.
And the fact that everything seems very low lit in general. I'd say a lot of shots on the ship, especially on the bridge, are very low lighting anyway. Like when they turned off the lights, quote unquote, turned off the lights, there's 1,000 points of light going on in every area of the ship at all times. And then, I just still can't get over that all the outside lights on the ship had to go off. Like, if you're spreading a disease through light, nobody's hanging out outside the ship. Don't worry about those lights.
Must hug impulse engines.
Yeah. But hey, the away jackets were really nice.
They
I love
were.
those. That's
Yeah,
one of
I-
one of those classic aesthetics that they brought back, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And I thought one of the other things, and this comes up so much in Star Trek, the Federation and Starfleet just seem to be like the biggest dicks in the galaxy, and they almost are like series antagonists. Like, now we got to do this because we can't do that to Starfleet. And you get it here from 2 directions. You get it with like, well, Una can't be here; she's got to delete her logs. We got to hold up her big secret. And at the same time, you get this whole race of people, another colony of her, I guess, genetic race, that had wiped themselves out because they had to risk extinction just to de-genetically modify themselves just to hang out with the Federation again.
Yeah,
So-
I didn't like that characterization of the Federation.
Yeah, and I think it comes up so much that we're always battling what we got to do against the Federation and Starfleet. So I see
kinda
that I
holds
put that in
true,
my.
though.
But it is. I mean,
It tracks being take Bashir being augmented.
Yep.
That was frowned upon and illegal. Any reference to genetic manipulation past Wrath of Khan, particularly in the Berman era, is very very much frowned upon and illegal. So I always thought that tracked.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory though. Was Bashir like actually in danger of losing like his Starfleet membership?
Yeah. So 5th season DS9. I'm such a nerd. DS9. 5th season DS9. Our man Bashir.
Yeah.
His parents were visiting, and Dr. Zimmerman was designing a new holographic doctor off of him. He accidentally lets out that, or the parents accidentally let out that he's genetically enhanced, and Bashir and everyone else is worried that this is going to cost him his commission. So, and maybe even his medical license, I don't remember. So his parents offered to turn themselves in and face punishment because they did it against his will or knowledge for the most part, because he was a child, and they just went with it.
Right. But see that makes more sense to me than going after an individual who is already genetically modified. Like, I don't know. I'm realizing we don't really know the details. Like, was Una genetically modified at birth? Is that something that the Illyrians do, like when they reach a certain age or something?
It probably would have been during her childhood or upbringing, yeah. If that's like the norm in their society.
I you know what? I didn't write this down, but I really liked her line when they're like, us Illyrians, we don't do this to become a super race. Like, we do it as part to live on these planets. Like, instead of forming the planets, we terraform ourselves so that then we can live on other planets.
Yeah.
That's actually a really cool way to do the whole race thing. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, oh, so we need to be able to breathe a little bit less oxygen. Like, let's modify ourselves this. Like, Una maybe needed a little super strength because maybe they're living on a planet with 1.8 gravity or something like that.
Or as we saw in this episode, she can basically immediately heal herself from just about anything.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to go settle lands and not wipe out all the all the natural organisms and fauna that are there, yeah, you better be able to wipe out any alien organism that could just be when you land.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion points when it comes to this running theme of genetic manipulation, because even as we work with GMOs and whatnot nowadays, and stem cell research and all that, there's a lot of positives, and that's the thing that Illyrians and other people are going to point out is like, well, why not do this? But story-wise, it's kind of cool that the Federation, specifically Earth, is just so reluctant to do it because they've been traumatized by a war that was focused on genetic enhancement. So, sorry, the wine is kicking in. So yeah, so the Federation and Earth have been traumatized by this, so they find it a very slippery slope where there's a lot of positives that can go into it. They think that the negatives outweigh the positives, and genetic manipulation is just a great ongoing theme throughout Star Trek, and I think with La'an, Strange New Worlds is going to continue that discussion.
Your wine's kicking in. Maybe mine was too, a little bit, because I went back and read my comment here that I was talking about this whole like Federation not allowing them in and everything, and I feel like we get a lot of episodes in all of Star Trek where, like I said, the Federation is like, we don't like what they're doing, so we're gonna solve the problem another way to get around this regulation, to get around the Starfleet order or whatever, like because it's the right thing to do. This was an episode where they actually showed that it showed to me at least like, well, the Federation must be doing a hell of a lot of stuff right because you got this whole race that's risking their own extinction to get into it.
Yeah.
Like you just don't hear like, oh, the Federation's wonderful. Like here was a whole planet of people that thought it was wonderful and change themselves maybe into little ghosty things outside. And
but I mean the perspective that we're presented with the most is from a military perspective, since Starfleet is military, and we very rarely, at least in Strange New Worlds here, get a civilian perspective of it.
But Nurse Chapel, she's a civilian.
Oh, what now?
I said, but Nurse Chapel, she's a civilian.
That is true.
Is that why she wears the white?
Yep, they introduced her in the first episode as a civilian researcher.
Right. That is right.
Doesn't she wear a blue uniform on TOS?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yep,
she's got 8 years to. She's got 8 years. There's a plot line in there somewhere.
I feel like we could talk about this particular episode all night. Because this, I said it in the Discord. Like this was the first time that Star Trek. All of us were sort of debating the philosophy on this. There were like 3 or 4 of us all talking about this episode after it aired. And I was like, this is the first time Star Trek has, in my group of online friends, has gotten that sort of discussion going. And like I don't think modern Star Trek had gotten that kind of conversation going amongst us until this. Like Discovery and Picard and even Lower Decks were all pretty straightforward. This one actually posed ethical and philosophical questions that we all had differing opinions on.
Yeah.
Wait till we get lifted up.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So other than that really shitty shot of Una carrying Hammer down to sickbay, I guess the practical effects people took a day off. But
it was a weird shot. Like just of her walking down the hallway. It just felt like, because when I watched the first time,
didn't they do it in slow motion too? Like
it felt
they
like
did it in slow motion.
It was a superhero, like Superman saved the boy.
That was odd.
I mean, I get it. There's something special about her, but at the same time, it felt like it was too long of a shot, and it just felt too out of place. Comparing what happened before and what happens after, it's like, oh yeah, I just saved Himmer from trying to transport in, a portion of magma, the mantle into the transporter room. But
by the way, she's not carrying Himmer; she's carrying a scarecrow. I mean, that's obviously not a man.
yeah,
yeah. That's what I was talking about. Like the practical effects people were not there that day.
They weren't, but it wasn't the fact that she was doing that. It was just the weird slow-mo walk down the hallway, and then she's at sickbay going, sedate him.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And it has nothing to do with the characters or anything like that. It's just an odd cinematic choice.
Mm-hmm. All right, Aust, what's your other man about? Because a plot line starts here that continues on.
Yeah, my biggest thing is the whole transporter buffer daughter at the end, Mbinga's daughter, felt very out of place in this episode. It just felt very strange to tack that on at the end. I get how they introduced it with the whole transporter problem earlier in the episode, but it took me by surprise when they threw it at the end of the episode.
I completely agree. I remember watching this episode and tweeting out practically immediately, being like, "Okay, we already had one big twist at the end with Una being Illyrian. Did we really need a second one?" And additionally, and we can talk about this more later on, obviously, the whole daughter storyline, in my opinion, is the weakest part of this season.
I think it could have been good. They cut it off way too quickly.
They introduced it oddly and they ended it abruptly.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with it really.
No, I don't think it's an excuse, but I think this is what happens when you have to do a season in 10 episodes.
Yeah, because it's a child actor and they would have to recast them next season.
So I mean, not that that's forgiving it all, but I think that's if they're going to try to fit too many long plots in. This is what's going to happen when you only got 10 episodes.
Yeah. And you know what? If this had been, a Star Trek show in the 90s, it would have been 24 episodes and they probably would have resolved it at the end of the season and it wouldn't have felt that strange.
Yeah. No, I mean, this could have been, hey, the next week they go to another planet and then the whole daughter thing becomes the whole B plot. They're like, hey, we've had problems a couple weeks in a row with the transporter. What's going on here? And
you read my mind. You read my mind because I do kind of wish they pushed it one more episode because, like I said, you don't need two big twists at the end of a singular episode. But even taking 3 episodes to hint at something, because like Chapel used the emergency medical transporter in episode 1 to beam the booster shot to Spock. What if in these first 3 episodes it's broken each time? It's like, hey, can we use the emergency transporter? No, it's not working. Second episode, hey, we need to transport this guy who smashed his face through glass. Can you transport him? Nope, it's still down for 3 episodes. And all of a sudden, the 4th episode, even if it's still as short as it was, because it was hinted at for 3 episodes.
Yep.
Exactly. You get that payoff. It's like, oh, because he's hiding something in there.
Also, when did he do this? Like, I guess his daughter was not living on the ship with him because they didn't do that in this time period. But I mean, is nobody looking for her? Like nobody, she had to be staying with somebody on Earth when he was serving in Starfleet, and then he just took her from them and never took her back. I'm like, hey, where's your kid, man?
That's why this is my least favorite part of the whole season, is because the logic around it makes 0 sense. What you just mentioned, but also when did he have time to do this? He's got to know as a doctor that keeping someone in the transporter and kind of eliminating half of it or most of its usefulness is very dangerous. Putting her on a ship that's going out in the unknown and being put in the danger, like none of it makes any sense.
Well, he does explain that because, the condition of his daughter's illness, and he's like, maybe somewhere out there one of these worlds has the cure, because it does get touched on.
That's true.
In an upcoming episode.
Yeah.
She says carry-on baggage.
I get the emotional, wait
a minute, she was checked. Never mind, she was checked.
Does
maybe
she fit
he's
in the
not
overhead?
Maybe
she fits in the overheads.
Maybe he's not thinking completely, in his right mind because it is his daughter, and I get that too. But they gotta explain that or something. Like there's got to be more said about it for it to make sense.
All right, let's move to our next episode, Memento Mori. This is a submarine episode where they get lured in by the Gorn and spend most of the time in the center of a brown dwarf star that is very quickly getting pulled into a black hole. Because, they're there a few minutes and be like, oh, damn, like, we can't stay here. But things don't happen on a galactic scale in this show. It happens fast. It comes at you. So, Oz, what do you really like about this show, or this episode?
Well, I liked the whole submarine angle. It felt very Balance of Terror-ish, which is like one of my favorite TOS episodes. The whole, just the tension of the whole thing was really compelling. I think this is when I started to get a lot more confident in this series. I think episode 2 is like episode 2 was starting to get there because like the first 12 minutes was so gripping, and then the previous episode had gotten us talking again about ethical questions, and then now this episode actually had me fully invested in like the actual dramatic stakes, which is something that hadn't happened for me in a while. I felt like all the visuals were just on point. They were really good. That's pretty much the two big things for me. I can't think of anything else. That was the
That's okay.
that was the epitome of the episode.
Mm-hmm. Ian, what do you get from this one?
Because
this was my favorite episode of the season.
Okay.
I do love me a good classic submarine warfare cat and mouse game, a la Balance of Terror, a la Wrath of Khan. As Al said, the stakes were up there, the tension was up there, and it was just executed so well. And the fact that there was not only the danger from the Gorn, but the external danger of the brown dwarf and the black hole, and how they utilized it to defeat the Gorn. It reminded me very much of a very underrated Voyager episode where Janeway goes completely unhinged and is like, I'm going to fly the ship through a pulsar unless you guys go away. And it was my favorite episode. I think they executed it so well. If anything can be said about the season is they definitely take very specific thematic episodes and check all the boxes. We got the disease episode, we got the comedic episode, we got the comet episode. This is the submarine episode, and just like everything else, they did it so well.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite too.
It is definitely up there.
Mm-hmm. And for the nitpickers about, the Gorn wasn't introduced until Arena, they didn't even know who they were, I did like the fact that the Gorn were never seen. And also on that note, an adult Gorn still has yet to be seen. So me personally, I still feel like it fits within. Kirk may have never seen a Gorn and that crew, but neither have this crew in terms of like an actual adult communicating Gorn. We just seen a ship and we've seen babies. So it's bending the rules, but I think it fits.
I guess it depends on where La'an's story goes. Because I mentioned this later in my notes, but it's like Starfleet has, a registered expert on the Gorn apparently serving within its ranks. So I don't know. I really need to rewatch Arena. It's probably been a couple of years since I've seen it. I know that Spock and Kirk both don't recognize they don't recognize the Gorn, and I feel like they may not have even heard the species name. I don't know. I could be wrong.
It is quite possible. This definitely starts the conversation about, for those who are completely canon obsessed, this starts the conversation. This starts the conversation of like, is this breaking canon? Is this playing loose with canon? Or like, what is it? And I'm in the camp of, unless you don't flat out take a sledgehammer to canon, if you're trying to tell a specific story and you tell it well, I'm okay with you fiddling with things. I'm okay with you tweaking things to fit the narrative that you're trying to tell.
I'm more okay with it if you tell a good story. Because if you break canon or you bend canon and you do it badly, then I'm already upset that it's done badly. And if they do something good with it, you're right. It is a lot more palatable to me. I've always had this view about any sort of work or writing, and anytime I try to write something, I try to have the same view as you. You know, if you set up rules for your world, you need to follow them. Even if you're writing about someone else's, taking somebody else's world building and writing your own story within there, you need to follow the rules that are set. Or else, if you can't follow your own rules, then how is the audience supposed to? I don't know if it's like. This is just my opinion. I respect works that follow their own rules more. So I know not all audience members are that way, but I mean, obviously, I'm going to want things to follow the sort of rules that I would set for myself when writing something. And you know, it's fine when other people don't feel that way as well. But ultimately, it's not what we've seen so far with the Gorn isn't a huge inconsistency.
No, I agree with that. And my nitpick is it could have been anything other than the Gorn, but I'm not canon obsessed with, it's inconsistent with, how they appear in the original series. It was, the name of the show is Strange New Worlds, and we're, hopefully going to discover a bunch of new stuff. It could have been a self-contained to the series kind of adversary that if they never came back, it's okay. But, I understand they want to tap into the lore of all of Trek whenever possible, and the Gorn is a great way to do that because everybody knows the Gorn. But at the same time, it could have been something new. Some
people on this podcast have Gorn outfits at home.
No comment.
That's really the thing for me is like, if you want to bend consistency, then why not? I mean, why not just create a new species? That's be equally as terrifying.
That's about where I sit with it. I honestly, I truly don't mind that it's the Gorn, but in the back of my head, I'm like, it could have just been something different,
Right.
Yep.
Because they're already trying to do
that right off
new.
my notes. Like, yeah, it could have been strange and brand new. It could have been fine. Like, just. And again, I don't mind. Cool. Gorn, as Ian, you said, this is a 60-year-old series. You're going to need to take some liberties and whatever, and they're bending a little here. But it didn't have to be. Like, the Enterprise set up the Xindi as a season-long arc, and you never hear about the Xindi ever again.
Yeah.
How they magically became an ally after the war.
Yeah.
I kind of hear about the Xindi in Strange New Worlds. I hope it's.
I hope so. Yeah, that's a great species to come back to. I totally agree that ideally they would follow canon. Ideally, they would follow their own rules. Ideally, aesthetically, things would look pretty darn similar to what we're used to. But if you're not going to go with ideally, if you're giving me something else that is still strong and still good, I'm still for it.
Yeah, that's where I am. And then all my other notes about this episode are all about Ortegas. Because this is not an Ortegas episode, but like,
how have we not talked about her yet?
Seriously, this is the episode to where she starts to shine, and I love it. Everything about it.
Yep.
Lest we forget. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, lest we forget, the last episode was the "whatever tweaks your freak" line. Oh my god.
Yeah, when that guy is like standing at that panel.
Mm-hmm. Whatever tweaks your freak, dude.
Trying to get his light on. But yeah, I mean, she's got the, I really, there was a sequence where the camera kept going back and forth between Spock and Pike, and he's like, it'd be a bad idea for the ship to go deeper into the dwarf. And then Pike's like, yeah, that's right. We should go deeper into the dwarf. And Ortega's like, hey, isn't that what the science officer just said not to do? And the camera pans over to him real quick, and he's like, indeed, that is what I said. But yeah, her flying to get them like right above the ship, like gravitationally, so they can drop the torpedo on it. It stuck out because I thought it was hilarious when she was like, when they start doing the radar thing, and she's like, "Why is that blip much bigger than the others?" And
yeah,
she's like the hotshot pilot of the fleet on the freaking Starship Enterprise, and has no concept of why bigger blips are bigger.
I take it as she just has no filter in terms of she's going to speak her mind. So like, obviously she knows what's going on, but like, that's her way of saying, oh, that's a big ass ship there.
Yep. And you know what? I recorded, there's a Star Trek podcast called Open Pike Night, and I've sent them audio for a lot of their episodes, and they're actually going to have the actress on their podcast. She's fallen in love with this podcast and their hashtag Mortegas. And so 60, 90 seconds I sent in for that episode, I was talking about like my kids like her too, and I think she says the stuff that the super excited fans say at home sometimes. Like there's another episode later on where they're outside Deborah the Nebula, and Pike's like, "Well, let's get out of here," and she's like, "Are you gonna say the thing?" And he's like, "Hit it." And like as fans at home, we're like, "Oh, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it?" You know, or yeah, you're a fan at home, and my kids they don't know anything about radar, so that's on the screen, and she's like, "Why the hell's that blip bigger?" And my kid's like, "Why is that bit bigger?" I'm like, "Oh, you know, it's just a little almost like interaction with the people watching it. Like she says the obvious, she questions the obvious, and but just brings attention to that."
Yeah. And lest we forget, also this episode, I believe, was the man, space really wants us dead.
Yeah, at this point, we're only getting to know her through one-liners, but they're pretty good. Damn it, good writing.
But that's the definition of a show stealer. Like she hasn't yet to have her own episode or even own storyline, and yet she is one of the most memorable parts of it, with even just a singular line.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get to the halfway point. Spock Amok. Great episode title name, but we talk about flipping checking the boxes. We had our plague episode, we had the whatever. Hey, now we got the body swap episode, Freaky Friday.
Hell yeah.
Spock and T'Pring. So Ian, I'll let you start this one. What do you really like about this episode?
I loved it. That's another one that I absolutely love. I think this is my second favorite for the season. I think most importantly, another thing that we have not seen from the other Star Treks for the most part is variety. I like how we follow up an intense submarine episode with an absolutely goofy, lighthearted comedy episode. And it happens again later on, so it shows that the show has variety and depth. Discovery, for the most part, is pretty one note. Picard is very one note. Lower Decks, because it is a comedy, has to be one note. And yeah, I love the fluctuation in tone for this one. That being said, from what I recall of it, because like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to fit a full rewatch in. I remember taking away from this episode that I wasn't immediately on board with having T'Pring in this show from the pilot, but this one set her up as a good, solid character and one of those intriguing storylines where, once again, yes, we know where it ends up, but how does it end up there? Especially when you think their relationship is strong here and strong even later in a future episode. So you're instantly thinking, well, how did it get to the point where she wants Spock to basically die in a fight to get another lover? So I'm really curious how this intriguing character who clearly loves Spock gets to that point. I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm worried if that's something that if it isn't handled well, it could almost kind of piss off the fans, because like you said, they do seem very strong. I actually like I never had an opinion about T'Pring before the show, but I actually like them together. And usually in cases like this, I don't want to see two characters break up. So I wonder, I was
going to say, what are they going to do? How are they going to do this without making people just hate T'Pring?
Exactly, right. They have to do it fairly. It's just, I feel like it's going to take a great feat of writing to gradually pull off, and make it believable that their relationship falls apart. Because you're like Hawkeye said, it's like in a mock time, it's almost like she was just completely indifferent about Spock. That's to the point where it had gotten. And it does not seem that way at all here.
So do you think, because they've very lightly hinted at it so far in the season about the stuff going on between Nurse Chapel and Spock, and they lean into that just a bit in this full season? That's
got to be a factor, and it also would sort of explain some of Spock's later indifference to Chapel and TOS, maybe almost like he possibly blames her.
Because we'll see more of that in a future episode from the season. But I mean, even from the scene where Nurse Chapel and Spock are in the bar on the planet, and you can just kind of see she's got a thing for Spock.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, I think she'll definitely play a big role in that storyline. And yeah, I agree that it will try and explain why Spock was so icy to Chapel a lot. So I hope they do that well. And Aust, you're very right. This is a very kind of sensitive storyline where, because at the end, the most ideal outcome is you don't want to hate T'Pring. You need to give the audience an understanding of why she got to where she was. But also,
Right.
you don't want the audience to hate Spock. You don't want him to completely screw her over in a way where people don't like Spock anymore. So there are two
Exactly.
characters that you gotta be sympathetic
And even Chapel,
for.
you don't want her to be like, oh
Mhm.
shit, like that fucking bitch broke them up. Look
Yeah,
what
you
she
got to be
did.
cautious with 3 characters and make
Yep.
sure that every single one has their reasons and has their
Yeah.
understandable reasons.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tricky.
Mhm.
I really like the actor they got for T'Pring.
She
she's
does
very good.
so good.
Yeah, she's a very good Vulcan.
Oh, I think one of my favorite lines is when they're talking to the captain and like, oh, now that we're in each other's bodies, I'm sure you can tell from our slight mannerisms that
You know what? They both did a great job at swapping their mannerisms, because it wasn't just half-assed or anything like that. It felt like T'Pring was in Spock's body and Spock was in T'Pring's body with how they held themselves. Spock talked with a higher voice when he had T'Pring in his body, so on and so forth.
I can't remember if it was Chapel or Ortegas asked, I think Spock, it must be weird being in your fiance's body, and he says, I hadn't considered it, and it's like really, you haven't thought about it
haven't gone to the bathroom
all?
once and
Exactly. Like, I don't think I could be thinking of anything else if it were me.
And funny enough, we haven't even brought up the new alien race that we
the Rongovians.
the Rongovians, the empathy race, basically,
Mhm.
which they even said at the beginning of the episode, like, hey, they rely a lot on empathy, and you watch the first interaction that the Rongovians have with another race
The
during
Tellarites.
the Tellarites.
Yeah.
And they're basically yelling at each other, and then when Pike starts talking to him, the guy immediately takes on kind of the persona of Pike to talk to him. And then when they start talking to the Vulcans, you're just like, oh yeah, they take on the role of who they're talking to, basically.
Yeah, they were doing the query response.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that one later TNG episode where a bunch of delegates visit the Enterprise, and one's going crazy with eating all the food and whatnot, and the other one, because he's hanging around with Worf, wants to fight him and stuff like that. So really embracing the different types of personalities that they're encountering. But speaking of, once again, checking off the boxes, this is your important delegation episode with some goofy hijinks risking it.
Yeah.
I didn't think there
I
were
really
no
like
hijinks.
the
There need to be more hijinks.
The
Because
hijinks
But Spock
here,
is not a fan of hijinks.
the hijinks here were all relegated to the Enterprise bingo.
Which was crap.
That was definitely the weakest portion of the episode, I feel like.
yeah.
I agree, and yeah, I see all the notes about like the Enterprise bingo. Nope. The only reason I'm okay with it, but this is not a very good reason. The only reason I'm okay with it is because it gave Una something to do.
Yeah.
It's not that
like,
I
here we
didn't-
are,
I
5
didn't-
episodes in, and she's only done anything like she carried Hammer down
Yeah.
I also feel
the
like
hallway
it's
in slow motion.
it's a good kind of repair of friendship between La'an and Una after the whole Illyrian episode, because of the tension there of La'an hates genetically modified people because of what her ancestor did, and Una had been hiding it from her, and this is a good kind of reunion of them after that.
Yeah, good
It's
point.
not that I disliked it. It's just, or it's not that I thought it was a negative. It's just that it was. It's not funny. It didn't do anything for me. It
Oh no,
it
the
felt like
the
it was
Enterprise
just
thing,
there. Just felt like it was there.
I'm also very interested to know how they know about tribbles at this point. Because Enterprise Bingo, sneak a tribble into the transporter buffer. That was one of the Enterprise Bingo things.
They did tribbles in the short trek, The Trouble with Edward, which takes place
Honestly,
before this. Yeah.
Best short trek ever. With the commercials, with the tribble.
Oh my
The
god!
cereal at the end.
I thought I was having a fever dream at watching that. Good lord!
Actually,
I think that came out before Lower Decks. I'm like, holy shit, they can do comedy.
Yeah,
There's
well,
a-
it was Mike McMahon who wrote it. that
Oh,
one.
was it? Oh,
Yep.
I think there's a Tribble in Enterprise.
I wouldn't
Oh,
doubt.
was there?
I think so because I'm rewatching it and I feel like I saw one recently. And
Maybe
it's
they were
like
tamer back then, not their genetics. This
Yeah.
is why the Federation doesn't want genetic modification. Goddammit.
in the episode The Breach. That's right. It was one of Phlox's pets in sickbay. Season 2, episode 21. Yeah, he shows Hoshi a Tribble. And I remember seeing that a few weeks ago with my wife, and I was thinking, didn't Short Treks retcon that, like that Tribbles were modified in a lab
later on.
or something? Yeah. So it's
Speaking
like,
of things that didn't need to be explained, but
yeah, it's like, but you know, the people who did that probably didn't watch Enterprise, or at least
also
didn't
feel
watch
like
every
the only-
episode.
the only person who really asked what a Tribble was Uhura in the Trouble of Tribbles.
She must not have completed Enterprise Bingo.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
after
good
her
point.
hazing, she. I'm not doing that shit.
Definite headcanon stretch, but really the only person who didn't know was Uhura.
Yeah. True. Another good line from this one is when T'Pring and Spock are trying all these different things to get their back in each other's bodies, and she says that I guess was it him must have said it, because I think T'Pring was the one that came out of her mouth, but that they've been researching a bunch of different ways they could do it, but one of them, we might need a gong.
Oh yeah.
I think I brought one.
I did like the like 2 minutes of M'Benga being in the episode. We get this out of nowhere shot of him being very happy while he's fishing, and that was it.
Hey, so they were fishing there on Starbase 1, and they kind of talk about it. So Starbase 1, it's in the Sol system.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
just met the Gorn on like the outskirts, because like they must be about as far away from Earth as possible. And the next episode, they're right back there. You know, they're the inconsistency in the series, and it's a little nitpick, but was it later on? They're like, oh, we're 2 days away from being able to contact the Federation. Like, holy shit, did you really go that far? Because you episode 5, you were back in Seoul getting repaired there.
That's classic Star Trek.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
definitely a nitpick because, like, well, A, to be pedantic, we don't know how much time has passed since between episodes.
that's
but
true.
also, that happens constantly in classic Star Trek.
We're on the edge of space, and we can't communicate with people because we're so far away. And hey, next place, we're right back at base.
Also,
Okay.
not really a nitpick or a meh, but I cannot stop calling T'Pring Pringles in my head whenever I hear her name. I just can't.
It's a Pringles.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I think on that note, we might be ready to get a little bit away from the humor. You know, talking about the radical changes. You know, we were
Ooh, buddy.
fighting for our lives in Memento Mori, you know, laughing it up in Spock Amok, and then we are right back into moral dilemmas, and holy shit.
This is a heavy hitter.
Yep. Lift us up where suffering cannot reach. I actually remember where I was watching this episode. We were on our 32 state trip, and I watched this like 6 a.m. the morning it came out while sitting in the middle of a desert. My family was fast asleep in a tent, and I'm like watching this, streaming it in the middle of the desert, like watching a sunrise and everything. And I was like, oh shit, like I got way too emotional. I mean, it's an emotional one, but like I was out there in the middle of nowhere too.
Yeah.
Like had a lovely backdrop, and then like had this dropped in my lap.
That's when you just take some peyote and walk off into the desert.
Yep. Yeah, this would have been a good time to do that, because so basically this is an episode. It takes parts of some story from the 1800s, and even before that, some philosopher, and I remember even looking it up. But basically, Pike shows up. There's his girlfriend from a long time ago, or somebody had a crush on from a long time ago. And, their perfect society is all great and everything, except for they got to sacrifice a kid every so often. And all the dealing with that was, damn, heavy.
Yeah, this one, although in a weird way, it's kind of a just a filler episode, but it's more than that because it hits hard. I likened it to the Enterprise episode, what's it called? Progenitor?
Cogenitor.
Thank you. That episode seemingly feels like a filler episode, but then it just gut punches you in the end, and it instantly becomes so memorable. And that was Strange New World's version of that. And I do like it when, from time to time, our heroes are unable to save the day because they can't be perfect superheroes all the time because that just gets boring. So the fact that they actually lose this one, love it.
And that happened a lot in the episode, even starting at the beginning. Uhura's, they got like this weak ass ship shooting at them, and they're like, Uhura's on security rotation this time, so hey, why don't you shoot back and disable their engines? And like she blows the damn ship out of the sky, like oopsies, because there was a bump and they moved and whatever. And at the time I was like, holy shit, she just killed a lot of people. But then later they examined the wreckage and realized like, oh, the people got off or whatnot. But yeah, and you get here, and even Mbenga, he doesn't know about stuff. He doesn't know about bookmarks in the 24th century. He's reading the same thing twice in a book that has a bookmark right in it. His daughter's like, you just read that. He's like, oh, I did. But no, and I love it. And this came to me later in the season, the whole foreshadowing here, because this kid's journey is Pike's journey. They are going to eventually strap him to a seat where his life's pretty much over.
Wait, the kid knew about his destiny?
I didn't pick up on that right at the like his destiny, because he knows his destiny is to end up in a chair, not being able to do anything.
No, I think the kid knew that he was going to help everybody, but I don't think he knew what exactly it entailed.
Oh, yeah. No, but I'm saying, but for Pike, like watching that kid do that,
yeah,
like that's his own destiny. He's like, well, I'm going to have to climb in a chair at some point to help others. Like, I'm going to save all those kids in that nuclear fire, whatever. And
that is
I,
a
too, am going to end up in a
fantastic
chair.
correlation. Like, that's well done.
Like, yeah, Ian, that was something I think I put it in our Discord just a couple weeks ago, like, and it was during the rewatch, and I was like, oh shit, like I didn't pick up on that the first time around, but like, no, that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to be kind of like a dried up husk sitting in a chair, and he did it because he sacrificed for others. So
yeah, with that, it kind of would have been a little bit stronger if the kid knew what he was doing and just didn't say anything.
Yeah,
because the difference is informed consent between Pike and the child.
Oh yeah,
because Pike is obviously going, he's clearly making the
by the
decision,
end of the season. Yeah, he makes the decision. Yeah,
to sacrifice himself for, sacrificing one to save many. Whereas I wasn't entirely sure if the kid knew what he was getting into.
It didn't seem
when
like
I rewatched, he doesn't even seem super scared or in pain when he sits down.
Well,
he seems a little apprehensive, but it's not like he's like, oh my god, and it sticks into him.
Well, I don't know how much of that is being a child and not being able to understand, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Part of the big gut punch was that performance by the kid was fantastic, because he definitely gave the performance of a child who was scared, maybe even a little bit confused, but has to go along with what the adults are telling him.
Yeah, it was hard for me to watch that.
I definitely heard people who were parents definitely hit harder. That one hit harder for them.
Oh yeah, Austin and I have been in with the Orville this season too.
Oh man, it's like every episode.
God, they're pulling on the hey, they know that all their fans are, or at least a good majority of the people who've watched Star Trek through the years are now parents and grandparents. And
yeah, like I'm sitting at my cubicle like trying.
What can we really do to twist those tears out?
Yeah, for real.
Let's kill another kid. That'll do it. So, to try to wrap this up in a decent amount of time tonight. Anything else about this episode that we really want to? Because I mean, this is one we actually have kind of the fewest notes on here, but I mean, it's a very impactful episode. But I think it's that one thing at the end. Other than that, the episode's just kind of going along, setting us up for that twist.
I do like it how they they picked up Mbenga's daughter again, so it just wasn't a dangling string. There was even like a tease about whether he's going to find a cure or not. Mm-hmm. That was this episode, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were like, oh, we could cure this, but down on our planet. But oh, hey, guess what? I can only give you breadcrumbs now.
Can't share it. Yeah. Can't share it.
And then even when he wants to, he couldn't share it. Like,
Yeah, that was a big thing too. Like because their civilization is just so
Secretive.
but also seemingly morally bankrupt after the whole kid thing happens. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you could cure your daughter, but just because of your morals, you can't.
all right. Well, speaking of people with no morals, let's move on to the next episode, the Serene Squall.
This was the weakest episode in the season for me.
Yeah.
Really?
By far. Yeah, I wasn't much of a fan of it. Like as soon as they introduced her, I was like, she's the villain. Like it was the writing was on the wall for me.
Mm-hmm. It was very on the nose too, to get a gender neutral person telling Spock like, well, you don't have to be human and you don't have to be Vulcan, you know, you can be neutral, be species neutral.
I felt like the character was very one dimensional. As soon as they revealed, you know, that they were the villain, it quickly shifted into just like over the top.
Oh gosh, it could have been like a Disney princess at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I got you.
Yeah, it just the whole episode didn't really do anything for me.
And then we also find out that, you know, the Enterprise is not allowed to leave Federation space without permission.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Really?
Yeah, that was.
How do you find a strange new world?
The whole point of exploration, you're not exploring in the space you already have.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's a line somebody should have been like, wait a minute.
Maybe it's like you can't leave Federation space when you know where the next border is, where you know where it goes into. But again, like if it wasn't made clear in the episode, it wasn't the best bit of writing there.
I would assume that a ship of exploration, like maybe that is a rule, but I feel like a ship of exploration would have that permission by default and then revoked, you know, on conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, other than that, in this episode, we get a, you know, further potential fracturing of Spock and T'Pring with the whole Nurse Chapel kiss. You know, it was all to advance the plot to keep T'Pring from, you know, harming her honor or obligation in any way to Spock. So, but the seed has now been planted.
Exactly. I think that was a really good part of the episode. Yeah, like you said, Brew, plant that seed for wherever we're going with Spock and T'Pring. But also, speaking of seeds that did not get watered at all after this, where the hell's Cybok? I totally thought they were teasing him to come back as like a possible big bad on like the final episode.
Wait till season 2.
I'm sure, but it's just odd. Yeah, it's just odd.
I did like the part with Chapel. I did like that part with Chapel. That's the shining point of this episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was Ortega's asking what how close they wanted to get. You know, first date close, third date close. No, blind date close. Then they circled back around to it later. And
I agree that Angel, as soon as the twist was revealed and they became the villain, they were pretty one-dimensional as a character. So I do agree there. Maybe I don't know. I do have a tendency, I'll fully admit, to do my analyzing on rewatches or after the fact. So like the first time watching it, I'm just letting everything that's happening wash over me. So I actually didn't see that twist coming.
Oh.
So it was, I had a pretty good no way moment in engineering when they turned heel. But now the Pike thing on the pirate ship, I understand how people might have thought that it was a little mismatch of tone, because it was very comedic, and I did enjoy it for that reason. Like anytime Anson Mount gets an opportunity to chew the scenery, I'm all for it. But I do understand that it is a very mismatch in tone, and honestly, very Pac-Led-esque. It reminded me very much of the Pac-Led.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, come on, man, the pirates with the big steering wheel in their ship.
Yeah, that was on the nose.
I mean, I did like at the end that they're like, oh yeah, we're in control. And then like you start hearing the phaser fire and stuff going outside. Like, well, actually it didn't go as well as we thought. So come get us.
That was great.
That I did like that. Like everything seemed, it's fine. We let it mutiny. It's good. It's good. But it didn't really go well. I thought another kind of oddball thing was Una was talking, and this is where they call Pike the what is it, the Boy Scout of the Federation of Starfleet, and then she's like, "Oh, now you're playing fast and loose. We're leaving Federation space, and you're leading an away mission." That's like 100 years before its time. Kirk went on every away mission. Like the way she brought it up was like, "Oh, you shouldn't be going on away missions."
Maybe that's just the whatever first officer to each their own. Like Spock didn't care, Una cares, Riker cared. I don't know. Is there an actual regulation about it? I don't remember an actual regulation.
I think in TNG there was, right?
Was there?
I thought Riker always said like, "Oh,
I can't remember.
Captains aren't supposed to go."
Or outside of no flag officer shall beam anywhere without a proper escort or something like that. Good old Savick.
All right, keep this ship moving. Let's go to our, another box checked. You got to have the holodeck episode. And since we didn't have the holodecks back at this time, we have the Elysian Kingdom and Deborah. Deborah made it all happen. So this
Good
is
old Deborah.
Yep. Debbie the Nebby. So the Enterprise is outside a nebula, and the nebula starts playing with everybody's minds because the nebula can detect Mbenga's daughter in the transport buffer, and her pain, her loneliness, I guess, is what it detected. And while being a complete hilarious episode, this was my favorite. Like, Bri and I went back and forth on this. Like, Children of the Comet is the most awesome classic, our favorite Star Trek episode. This is my favorite episode of the season. Like, just because we quickly got to know how everybody is, and then you have everybody play different things. Even Pike's hair played a different role in this episode. So, and Hemmer, God, before he gets blown out in the next episode, like him dancing around and pretending to be a magician and then just hitting a button and beaming everybody away. Oh, God, that was awesome.
He came onto his own in this episode, which is why it's even more, I wouldn't even say heartbreaking, because like heartbreaking implies that like the story did its part and like made you feel things. No, it makes it even more disappointing what happens.
Yes,
next
disappointing
episode.
as a fan. Like, damn it, we're not going to get more of that?
Yeah, he just peaked. I guess he went out on top, but still.
Yeah. As he said a few times in the episode, magic, and pushes a button.
But this was interesting. I think Austin and we disagree on this one, but like I was happy they did this and got rid of the whole daughter plot line. I thought that was just going to be too hard to deal with. Like, what are you going to do? Like, Starfleet probably doesn't approve of this. And heck, at the end of the season, we already figure out that the other big secret is an issue that they're going to have to deal with in season 2. So I was okay that they wrapped this up. I was like, cool, it's wrapped up. Maybe it was a little too fast, but it's done. I didn't like that plot line at all.
I wasn't a fan of it, but I was like, I wish it could have gotten a little bit more fleshed out than, it's introduced and resolved within 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, barely touched on in 2 of those 5.
I just feel like they shouldn't have done it if they were going to, wrap it up this quickly. And it's not that they wrapped it up badly. I guess, the ending was okay. They didn't do anything else with it. So it's sort of like, okay, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah, Platty, you put it perfect. I'm just glad they just resolved it. Was it, like I said, this is the weakest plot thread of the entire season, and it did result in a fantastic episode. I love this episode, but because it's coming off of the weakest premise of the season, I am just glad that it wrapped itself up. It's no more, and even though it still seemed rushed, and what a goofy way, not goofy, but like an interesting way to wrap it up, because I understand why Mbenga let his daughter go, but it should have been a far more tougher decision to let your child go. Not even like teenager or young adult child, but your child just go like that. And I will say, I kind of wish she didn't come back immediately. That really took a lot of the emotional weight off of that. Her coming back as an adult, being like, I've had a fantastic life, the things that I've seen. That would be a great payoff for at the end of the season, for somehow, or even a future season. Like if Mbenga's carrying that weight of essentially not sacrificing, but just like letting his child go for the sake of her having a better life, but that weight is still upon him. But then like in the middle of season 2 or even later, who knows, then she comes back and be like, no, Father, I've been so happy. Thank you so much. And that turns his character around, his characterization around a little bit.
You're right. That could have been a B or C story way later on. They're out doing something else and, oh, hey, look at that nebula. Looks familiar. Weren't we here before? And she shows up, has a little chat with him, and it could have just been a little 10-minute couple scene thing in a future episode instead of tacked on 60 seconds to here.
Yeah. So one thing that we haven't really touched on is about how up to this point, this show has done such a great job at making such likable characters that usually in other Star Trek shows, when they do something goofy with the cast, it doesn't really hit that well because you still don't know these people. You're still not totally invested in them. It's only on rewatches where you start to enjoy it better because you've gotten to know the characters. But this show has done such a great job at establishing really likable characters and some pretty good set relationships so that when they do go completely off kilter in Fantasyland, it's super enjoyable. Because they've done such a good job establishing it who they already are. So then when you get the complete opposite or a goofy version, you can just immerse yourself in it.
I know.
Do you think it's because we know half the characters anyway?
That also is true.
Yeah. Oh, but La'an, oh my god.
Oh my god.
And that was the actress's real dog.
I know.
That was hilarious. But
also, I gotta say that dress. Oh,
yeah.
But
that's
my fanboy jewel right there.
I mean, they really did 180s for almost everybody. Like La'an, like the most uptight person on the show, and then just being the ditzy princess. And you've got Pike, who's ready to sacrifice himself for these kids down the road. He's good with his future. It is what it is. And then he's just like the most.
Backstabby,
out of anybody.
Little...
Backstabby, sniveling. That's it. I couldn't get that word out. Sniveling, little conniving. It wasn't even conniving. It was just done to him, and he's like, "Okay, I'll deal." But
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I will say though that another nitpick is I wish they didn't have their memories wiped. I wish they did remember this because another element to like really enjoy from these characters, especially La'an specifically, would be the awkward embarrassment of what just happened. Like La'an all strict and proper, all of a sudden people know that she was like this ditzy princess, and I would have loved to see her embarrassment about it and trying to hide it while people are chuckling because that's very classic Star Trek. Like Tuvok got made fun of and he was uncomfortable. That was great. Or like Spock getting uncomfortable, or Kira, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish they kept their memory.
Oh, yeah, very true. Even Hemmer, who should have, didn't.
Oh yeah, that's right. He didn't either.
Even wiped his. So that was.
Ooh.
Yep. All right, well, I know we're about to lose Ian here in a little bit, so I at least want to get through the next couple episodes, and we might stick around a little bit longer going about some overall stuff. But let's get to All Those Who Wander, where we get back to the Gorn, and I'm sure more nitpicky here because although we hit on that a lot before, like we're seeing the baby Gorn. But also, this is where we get Hemmer killed. Boom, episode 9, and he's probably only been in like 5 of them for the most part.
My least favorite episode of the season, only because of this reason.
Yep. Yeah, and see, I'm not a big sci-fi and horror stuff, so I know people had problems like, oh man, that's Predator and Alien and this, and I'm just like, it was fine.
Yeah, it was basically that, but it felt like it was just another franchise episode, which it's a meh, but it's not it still worked.
Mm-hmm.
Also, check off that monster episode off the checklist.
Check off the monster.
Yeah.
Check off, the red. Basically, we had 2 red coats here, red shirts. Like, hey, look, we just learned your name. Congratulations, Lieutenant.
We just learned your name.
Foreshadowed so hard.
Yeah, we just learned your name.
Good job, Ensign.
And you just got promoted.
Yep.
Yeah, if they appeared like even just once prior in the season, then it would have been far more impactful.
But nope.
Well, the problem is they can't kill any of their main characters, so they had to come up with someone new.
That is true. Well, they did kill a main character.
That's true. Yeah, they killed one of the ones that they could.
Yep. They went. They had their cake and ate it too. Here, they're like, we're going to introduce people and kill them, and then that other guy that's been around for a little bit, we're going to kill him too.
I mean, they even finished off the Gorn at the end of the episode, the same. I feel like it was the same way that they did in one of the Alien movies. They basically just froze it to death.
Yeah, Sid.
I think you're
I don't
right.
know. I've not watched enough.
I mean,
It's been a while.
Seems like
I
a good
think
thing to
it's,
do, though.
I think
They
it's
don't
fine.
like the cold, freeze them.
I think it's fine to take something from another source, another media source, and to do something with it in a different setting. I think that's generally fine. It just felt really specific. Like it just felt like they really, there wasn't really much changed about it at all, even to the point with the aliens, the Gorn bursting out of the alien's chest,
Which,
Like
apparently can't be detected.
Yeah.
You've got things the size of apples climbing around through people's bodies, and nope, they're in no way they're detectable.
I mean, it's a good concept, and I understand why they took it. It just, I don't know. It was on the nose for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
From a production standpoint, it was so well done.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
horror aspect, monster movie aspect of it was so well done. But yeah, I agree that the quote unquote references to all these other franchises were too obvious.
And then they gave me a reference that I got nothing out of because they were headed to Deep Space Station, K7,
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
from the Trouble Tribbles, and
yeah.
they got nothing. Got nothing from that.
And that one's okay. That one's a fine throwaway reference that we get all
I
the
know,
time
yeah.
from various things. That one's fine.
No,
If they're
that
supposed
was
to play
just
a major role in it somehow.
No. That was a name drop, and that was a story plot. Like, we got to get the Enterprise out to not be able to help you. So we got to have a reason. There's the MacGuffin. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement that it sucked that Hemmer died.
100%.
They didn't do enough with him. I felt like
Yeah.
he was one of the more likable characters, but I still feel like we didn't get enough attachment for his death to really hit home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it's it's a loss for us. Like, we're not going to get to see that.
Right. I'm
It-
sad that the character's gone away. I'm not sad that he's dead.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They took away from the potential. of his
I just
character.
remember when that was happening, like watching it live for the first time, I was just like, are you freaking I yelled this out loud. Are you freaking kidding me?
Well, since Anar's like the cold, there's still that possibility.
That's
You know what?
No body, no death.
That's what, I kept seeing that, and then again they came out with the producers and like, no, we're done with him. But the actor is going to come back.
I know. Oh God. I don't want to steal Ost's note, but I am. Sorry. This is very comparable to Arium in Discovery. Now, this was a slightly better done job than Arium, because Arium was like, yeah, she was there in the majority of episodes up to that point, but she didn't do anything. There was no reason to like her or connect with her. So on the episode where she dies, all of a sudden in the very beginning, oh, she has great friendships with other members of the crew. Oh, she actually was human and had this boyfriend or husband and then suffered a tragic accident and then dead. No connection whatsoever. So totally unearned. This one was a little bit more earned because we were getting shades of Hemmer that we could connect to, that we could appreciate, that we could enjoy, especially in the very previous episode. But yeah, you put it perfectly. Like, I'm more disappointed that the character is gone rather than feeling bad that he died.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, people talking about people feeling bad about dying. We come to our last episode of the season. The season finale was A Quality of Mercy. And we get Pike, who's like, you know what? I'm going to change history here. Screw this. Like, this, I'm going to send a message to this kid to not be there on a certain day. And instantly who walks in is old Pike and taking him on a time travel adventure.
That uniform.
So
Oh,
good.
that was awesome.
I know.
It's
My nitpick would be the strap is so long. It's awkward, but I don't care. It's still gorgeous.
See, I like it because Pike's like, I'm going to write the letters to these kids to, keep them from joining Starfleet. And we immediately get to see the consequences of these actions. And, it really sets in stone of, yeah, we're married to Pike's eventual fate for TOS. We're not going to fudge around with it potentially at this point from what we've revealed. But it's like, it's set in stone more or less now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was worried at the beginning of the season when Una mentions maybe you can change your fate. And I was like, I hope they're not going to rewrite the entire, canon. But no, yeah, it looks like they're going to stick with it.
Yeah, it's a great season long thematic arc. that it puts the question in the audience mind: are they going to change it? And you get your various reactions of yes, I hope they do, or they better not. But they settle it in a season, and as long as it doesn't continue, it can pop up from time to time, but as long as it doesn't continue to take focus season to season, I think what they did with his worry and his revelation, they did it perfectly.
Yeah.
They did, and this is what the season opened with. Bearded Pike, shit, I can't believe this is going to happen to me. I don't want to be in Starfleet and do this. To, season closes and, all right, it's going to happen, but...
Yeah, and he has an even more concrete reason to stick with his destiny. Like, yeah, he's going to save a bunch of cadets, great. But saving Spock, and also knowing that Spock is such an integral figure of Federation future, he has an even more invested reason to do it. And I gotta say, I understand how, like, apparently Kirk is like the linchpin in the whole Romulan war thing, but I thought they were going to go even further with this alternate future because Spock played a key role in the peace with Klingons. I thought they were going to bring Star Trek 6 and the peace with Klingons into this.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, there's a bit...
Especially considering that old Pike is wearing a movie uniform.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I get it, because Spock also, way in the future, still plays a key role with Romulans, but more immediately during Pike's hypothetical lifetime, it would have been his push for peace with Klingons.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't have Klingons this season, so don't bring them up yet.
Balance of Terror was a better episode to remake than any of the Klingon episodes.
That's true.
Do you think we'll see any more of that Romulan commander?
I hope not.
Probably not, because
we're not supposed to see the Romulans, right?
Not until then.
Yeah, but they had this they had this whole like segment of this one Romulan coming to terms with, I don't want this war to happen, and it seems like they're going to play into something with that, unless it's just a very odd. Because why would they focus on that so much? Well, that was my alternate future.
That was my weak part of this episode. Was even though that Romulan commander played a big role in the original Balance of Terror, because you could focus on the cat and mouse game between here's Kirk's plan and thoughts, here's the Romulan commander's plan and thoughts. It didn't hold the same weight in this episode, because the Romulan commander was kind of a non-player for the most part, because we're so focused on the differences between Pike's actions and Kirk's actions that there's no need to then do that same type of comparison with the Romulan commander here. So I kind of wish, and also because this whole episode was supposed to be from Pike's point of view, being that he was brought to the future, it took me out of it to then jump to the Romulan ship, because we lost our POV character.
Yeah, I get that. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, James Frain should have played the Romulan commander.
That's what I said. They missed a perfect opportunity to have James Frain be the Romulan commander.
Yep.
In the perfect deep cut reference.
Yep.
Instead, we got the perfect person to play James T. Kirk, right?
Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Space detective.
Oh my God, he does look like him.
He looks exactly.
I never thought of that.
It's distracting. Like it took me out.
It really, yeah. I mean, I know you can't have him play it exactly like Shatner does, but that was just.
It still seemed like he was doing an impression.
I didn't get that. If he was doing an impression,
not overly like Shatner-esque. Like he wasn't doing his cadence of speaking, but I don't know, just that kind of little machismo. This is Captain James T. Kirk of the USS Farragut. How may I be of assistance? Just seemed a little.
Alrighty then.
A little slightly cartoonish. Oh yeah. I'm not gonna get that out of my head now.
Chris Pine was a much better Kirk in my opinion. He just this guy, and there's nothing against this actor. I'm sure he's a fine actor. It's just it didn't feel like Kirk to me.
I feel like they tried to explain it to a way like, oh well, this is a different Kirk. This is a Kirk that never got on the Enterprise. I'm like, no, I think that was the actor. Like, I don't think he was directed to be the way he was that specifically.
So take it from this perspective though. We're in this alternate timeline, so we're seeing an alternate Kirk, and we do see alternate versions of all of the characters on the ships too. Like Ortega's is like super serious the whole time.
She's hashtag Wartegus in this one.
Yeah, Wartegas. So when Kirk comes in the prime timeline, basically, we may see a little bit different version of him. You know, just that's how I kind of viewed it. Of this is alternate timeline stuff. Everybody's acting a little bit different, so it may be a little different when he actually comes into the show in season 2.
Yeah, I agree that there's definitely room for improvement. I think he, hopefully, knock on wood, should follow the same progression that Ethan Peck as Spock did. Like Ethan Peck as Spock in Discovery, fairly hit or miss. It took a while for me to warm up to him as Spock, but then you see the short treks, and then you see him on the show, and then totally, he's a well casted younger Spock. So they have an opportunity to kind of sweep this performance under the rug with exactly what Buru said, is that as an alternate timeline, we get some slight alternate characterization. So if he does come out swinging in season 2 and improves within the role, then that's exactly what it is and what it'll end up being.
Let's hope.
Also, really quickly, note about Chris Pine. I didn't start to buy Chris Pine as Kirk until beyond the 3rd movie.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't either.
Yeah, he's still great though. Like, I want to see more of him. I want to see more of that crew. But yeah, it took 3 movies for me to finally be like, okay, yes, he's Kirk.
3? They only made 2. It's just 2009 and then beyond. I don't know.
Sorry, what am I thinking of? Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's like people who say there's 4 Indiana
memories.
Jones movies. What's going on with my brain?
I know, right?
Soon to be 4 or 5 or whatever.
Potentially. Let's see if we all collectively want to take another drug to wipe it from our memory.
All right. So I think we've mentioned the answers to some of these as we've gone. We had some post questions here, and Ian, if you do need to run, that's okay. We can thank you so much for joining us, but we'll go through these post season thoughts here. So what was everybody's favorite episode of the season? Ian, I know you mentioned it before, but go ahead.
Memento Mori, the first Gorn episode, but definitely shout outs to Spock Amok and the Elysian Kingdom.
All right, that leads right to what I put. I said Elysian Kingdom was my favorite. Like I said, I think it was my favorite episode of the whole thing. But if I'm going to talk favorite Trekkie thing, it's Children of the Comet, kind of like my choice 1B. Bururian?
I think I'm with you on that. Elysian Kingdom is favorite episode, but Children of the Comet, favorite Trekkie episode. And then, I'm going to have to go behind that. Episode 2 favorite for me is Spock Amok, by far.
Ost, what do you put?
It's so hard to choose, especially among those early episodes.
We didn't choose. We
10,
picked 2 or 3 each.
Yeah. Episode 10 on my last watch through was I was so I was fanboying over that so hard with all the Balance of Terror stuff that it was my favorite. But sitting here talking about episode 4 got me realizing that I think that's my favorite.
All right, you can be swayed any given day. So, who's our favorite new character that was introduced? I'll go.
I think we all said the same thing, basically.
Actually, we all said the same too. and I think even those of us, I won't speak for Ian, but the one of us that did not put Hemmer on there, I would say Ortegas and Hemmer too. What Bururian put, he put both. I put Ortegas. Hashtag Ortegas. Definitely, though, Hemmer's right there for me.
Yeah, same.
If we're all choosing 2, then I'll say Hemmer and Ortegas.
No Nurse Chapel love, but
it's tough. It's tough, but
I know
she's not a new character.
Oh, there you go. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that's
we got our loophole.
The question originally was, what is your favorite non-Spock / Uhura character of the season? But,
no, this is a really strong cast. It's like picking favorite children.
Otherwise, I'd say either Pike or Una is my favorite, but they're not new either. So
they're not new. Well, then, if we want to go back to TOS, what's your favorite nod to TOS? Ost, do you want to go?
Yeah, the Amok Time music at the beginning of Spock Amok.
Oh, how did we not talk about that when we talked about that episode?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was so good. Like, as soon as the episode started, it was just, And then some of the little visual nods, like the tricorder, I think was the biggest one I noticed. It looks a lot like the TOS tricorder.
Bururian, what'd you put?
Mine was, when Pike first went on to the bridge of the Enterprise once the Admiral got him back, and, when it played the classic sounds, I was like, I'm totally on board.
All right. I mentioned a little earlier, my favorite nod was just that offhand, we got to deliver these batteries to Deep Space Station K7. And, that's all they left it as, that mention.
Perfect.
Ian, what'd you put?
I'd originally put Admiral Robert April, but then I realized, oh shoot, that's technically the animated series.
Close
counts.
enough. It's
And I did have a backup
1980.
answer. Yeah, I did have a backup answer, but that also still doesn't quite count towards this question because my backup answer was I love how they were able to actually make that goofy looking captain's chair look sleek. But even that was technically Discovery.
All right, so they've already wrapped filming for season 2, which is interesting because they did all of season 2 without hearing from the fans from season 1. Although I'm, unlike Discovery, where that would worry me, I bought in, man. So I think season 2 will probably be as good as season 1. The only thing I want to see, goddammit, I want more strange new worlds. I had a little count going down here that I left, and seriously, we've had 5 new worlds, and I didn't even count one of them as strange because it was just a Federation colony. We're here to help the colonists. So yeah, they only went to 5 new worlds, and only 4 of them were strange. And hey, you got this title here, and you killed off my new strange character. And come on, man. I want new strange worlds. I want less Gorn. I think we could almost leave that alone at this point. Maybe have one episode where you touch back on it again. But I want less Kirk, but I have a feeling from everything that was said, we're going to get a lot more. And not George. I think we're getting a lot more James T. Kirk. Ian, what do you want?
Well, hashtag more Tegas, obviously, but which was apparently confirmed that she's going to have her episode finally. But I also want to, and this was slightly done, but it was more thematically done in the first season. But I want a season story arc, but to be clear, still not serialized. I want this a la Doctor Who. Doctor Who during the revival has found that perfect mix of sprinkling bits and pieces of a season-long arc that then comes to a head at the very end. And I kind of want that. They still stand alone, but they're still connected.
You know what that sounds like? Like the plot of a Dragon Quest game. You've always got the big bad guy at the end, but along the way, you've got at least 10 to 20 towns that you got to go solve all their problems first. Yep. So, Oz, what do you want to see?
I want to see some tie-ins to Enterprise because I feel like that's the show that gets that's the underdog. It doesn't really. It's never had any references because it was the most recent show for the longest time, and it's gotten a few mentions in Discovery, but nothing really big. Like mentioning the Xindi earlier, I'd like to see them return, or maybe just at least just a species from them. Heck, I mean, they could have T'Pol show up. She should still be around.
What, you didn't like the one warp nacelle USS Archer ship?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they had the USS Archer. Yeah, I do like that they
did him dirty with the one nacelle though.
Well, it was a ship meant for first contact, right?
Oh, that is true. Yeah,
that's a good name for a first contact ship. Getting out there, meeting new people. That's what Archer was supposed to be about.
Yeah, they probably didn't need permission to leave Federation space.
Nope.
Bururian, what stuff do you want to see in season 2?
A mixture of what both you and Ian had said, like more strange new worlds and more of a not quite serialized but season arc kind of thing, because while the season was great, it was literally flavor of the week for every episode with storylines that kind of didn't really matter. Like the Gorn was the big heavy tie-in for the entire season, but overall it just it was more flavor of the week, which I'm completely fine with. But the thing I love about Star Trek is the cast of characters working together to solve problems, and that's what I want to see more of the most.
All right. And, some late breaking news we got just last week. They confirmed, because I actually remember this from early June. I guess Kurtzman was talking about, oh yeah, we want to do crossovers. We want to do crossovers. And the way that it was talked about so much is like, okay, they already did one. They're just hinting at it. And of all the bizarre crossovers, we're getting a Lower Deck episode, we're getting a Strange New World episode with Lower Deck in it next season.
Did you watch the interview with Ensign Mount and Ethan Peck? And
I watched about half of it, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, the way he's talking about, they asked him, like, what do you think it was going to be? He's like, I kind of figured it was going to be Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, that's the one I watched too. So it was interesting how they couldn't really say much on it, but what they said was that there will be animated portions in the episode, but they didn't really go into more of it than that.
In the Strange New Worlds episode?
It'll be in the Strange New Worlds episode, yep.
Yeah.
That's weird.
They had Ethan Peck. I loved Ethan Peck's shirt. Was, what is it? My species invented first contact, and all I got was this damn shirt or something like that.
It was this lousy t-shirt.
Was this like... So, Ian, I pretty much put mine off of what you wrote, because I kind of think that's how it's going too. How do you think they're going to blend these two shows together?
Well, I'm glad they confirmed it's not going to be Roger Rabbit, because like Strange New World sets a great start. Don't ruin it with something incredibly stupid like that. I don't want to see live action with animated Boimler walking around. That's just no. But the only way I can really see this happening is I imagine they start and or end in the Lower Deck setting and fully animated, but they encounter something, some space distortion, timey-wimey stuff happens, and Boimler Mariner, and hopefully Ransom, because we got to get that Star Trek royalty married couple on screen together with Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romaine. That needs to happen. So I hope they're keeping that secret, and Ransom's with them too. But after timey-wimey stuff happens, they find themselves in Strange New World live action land.
I hope they never address the fact that they switch between live action and animation.
Exactly. That's the best way to do it. Don't even mention it.
That would, and you know what? I like that idea. I didn't even think about that, but I looked what Ian wrote. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of what I was thinking. I think it's going to be a fake out. Maybe they even like start the episode like it's a Lower Deck episode, even though it'll be Strange New World season 2 episode, whatever. But them like talking about, let's go to the holodeck and live out an old mission like from Starfleet records. And when they walk into the holodeck, they're just live action, and they're part of the crew taking place like in a holodeck mission that is ripped from a Strange New Worlds mission briefing or something like that. Yeah. So either way, I can't believe they're going to put those two together. That just seems hilarious.
Yeah. It blows my mind.
That was not the combo I was expecting.
And I'm so looking forward to it.
So, and hey, we're just a few short weeks away from our next season of Lower Decks anyway. So.
Oh yeah, it's a month out. It's a month out this week.
And end of August, so we won't have to go too far there.
I'm on my third rewatch of season 2. It's just too good.
I was trying to put it on in the background while I was doing stuff, and it was way too distracting. I found myself watching that. I'm like, okay, no, there's another half hour gone. This cannot be my background TV show.
Yeah.
But all right, here we're wrapping things up. Definitely want to thank Ian for jumping in here last minute, because I think we invited you Monday for this podcast, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. That we were going to record on a Tuesday, and luckily we were able to push it a couple days, give him a little bit more time. And but Ian, if anybody wants to find your stuff online, I've got some stuff in our show notes. I've got your YouTube and Twitter contact, and I have your Dragon Warrior Classic website there. But go ahead and tell everybody that's listening, not reading, how they can find you. Plug whatever.
Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, so Star Trek related, I have a Star Trek YouTube channel called Star Rekt, spelled R-E-K-T, like the kids do. And it's predominantly song parodies. That's been the big appeal to it, and it's been a lot of fun to do those. I love doing them, sprinkling in some video essays and goofy stuff here or there. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Star Rekt YT. And then for you Dragon Quest fans out there, I do hope to be a little bit more active in the Dragon's Den community, because I do miss it. But yeah, mostly my 2 fan games, Dragon Warrior Classic and Dragon Warrior Classic 2. I guess technically breaking news. I have always planned on doing a third. I have like a whole walkthrough already planned out, but I just need to sit down and just make it. So, but yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast, and Booru definitely knows I'm always down to talk Star Trek, and hell, I'm always down to talk Dragon Quest.
Well, Pendy wants to subscribe and catch up at the end of the 2022, and we want to have another Star Trek episode where we probably just talk about the last 2 years, like New Trek, like, hey, what's going on with New Trek? What do we like? So most definitely for that, and we'll tag you for some other Slime Time episodes if you're up for it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invitation. This was a blast. Unfortunately, I do have to duck out, but thank you so much once again. And yeah, hope to do this again sometime.
All right. Bye, Ian.
All right. Take care, guys.
See you later, man.
Aust, do you want to read your line?
Yes, I do. And with that, that's all for this episode of Slime Time Sidequest. Thanks, Platty, Bururian, and Ian for boldly going where this podcast had only gone once before.
Once before is great, but you know where this podcast has never gone?
I've heard enough of these that I can guess, all right?
That's right. We've never gone to Patreon. We don't do that crap. But, if you got any Gold Press Platinum or Federation credits that are just completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, treasure chest pot, barrel safe, or even searchable wall sack, and you would like to donate anything to a website that has been supporting the Dragon Quest fans for 25 years now, stop by the Dragon's Den at www.woodus.com/den. Click on support this site. Woodus has owned and maintained the Dragon's Den fan site for decades, and he personally edits every YouTube version of our podcast. He fully appreciates any donations to help keep those servers running.
And the Dragon's Den website also features an Amazon affiliate link. If you click the link and then make a purchase, a small fraction of the sale will go to support the Den. It doesn't cost you anything, and it'll help Woodus keep the site going for another 20 years.
Yeah, Woodus even has a designed a Slime Time t-shirt with the logo that our resident graphic artist Dwayne Bullock designed, and that's for sale over at the Den as well, and there's a link in our show notes for it.
And as part of the Dragon Quest Slime Time Extended Universe, or DQSTEU, DQ Stew, you can direct comments. You can direct comments or questions for the podcast on Twitter or Instagram at DQ Slime Time, or continue joining in tons of DQ discussions at the Dragon's Den forums, one of the few remaining forums still around. It's our little slice of the internet. You can find it at the Dragon's Den main page at www.woodus.com/forums. You can also find us and other rabid DQ fans through Bururian's officially unofficial Dragon's Den Discord server. P.S. Check out the Star Trek channel. It's my favorite.
Yes, it's really picked up with this. I think we had some discussions, but holy crap, I think Strange New Worlds, as you can hear for the past 2.5 hours, really got us excited and going. But if you would like some more Dragon Quest content, check out Dragon Quest Slime Time Sidequest or Tactfully Die. All our libraries of episodes are on the Dragon's Den. They're on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Audible, YouTube, lots more. Please like, subscribe, rate, a review for the podcast wherever you listen. And then, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
You know what? This last round of Synthol is on me, because SideQuest is complete.